all the women who lost their male partners to red pill content, because I want to know what happened.
Yeah, I'm right here. I lost one of the loves of my life. One of my best friends, had known him over 20 years, since before we were born, to red pill content, and I want to talk about it today. I do think it's important to educate people and keep them aware of this. Well, it was like a 5-10 year long process to strap in, and I think one of the hardest parts wasn't accepting losing him, but having to accept that, like, this person, these ideologies were inside him the whole time. So his name was Jared. We grew up on streets near each other, and our families knew each other before we were born because we were all homeschooled. So obviously when we were little, I had a big old crush on him because he was the only boy my age I had ever spoken to, but he had no interest in me because he was a little kid. So for a lot of the middle years, he goes back into school. We don't talk. He's in the grade above me. But once we get into high school, we actually reconnect somehow, and I forget how, but I'm a total nerd in high school, and he is like a hockey jock. But he was always a really sweet kid. So for a while, I believed him when he swore his hockey friends must have stolen his phone in the locker room and sent this message to me on Snapchat that said, "Why don't you make yourself useful and send over a pic?" And when I was like, this is really random, like, this doesn't seem like even your verbiage, what's going on, dude? They blocked me on everything on his phone. So we didn't talk for several years after that, and I found it a little bit weird that, like, dude, we were talking every single day, and you didn't even think to look me up and notice I wasn't even in your phone anymore? But anyways, he gets dumped by a girl who absolutely shatters his heart on college, and we actually reconnect because we match on Tinder. And at this point, he is emo, right? He has all the bracelets, he listens to heavy metal, he is very atheist, he has a lot of Satan stars and whatnot. He is the furthest point in the universe from the typical red pill boy. So when he's back in town, we actually go on some dates, and he gets really sick, so I bring him over some soup and like some cookies that my grandma, who I was living with at the time, homemade, and we have some really cute, like, cuddling, watching TV, nothing else sort of dates. And it was just like old times. And then after that, he actually kind of rejects me by ghosting me a little bit, but he wants to remain friends, and I'm fine with that because we were friends our whole life. And the more I get to know about him in that point, the more I realize it's probably for the best, because he's in a lot of therapy at that point, which is very important, because he has such bad anxiety and depression and things like that he can't even leave his home to go out in public. And also, he's still obsessed with this girl who has blocked him on everything, and he won't tell me why. But one day he says he found her address and he wants to write her a letter because he thinks it'll be super duper romantic and win her back. He had this tendency to do that, right? Like, romanticize all of his actions, when from the outside, like, this girl has blocked you on everything, she has told you not to contact her, and now you're tracking down her address. And I tried to explain to him that that's kind of terrifying behavior, but I don't think he listened to me. I do think he sent the letter, and I don't think anything ever came of it. But at this point, he decides he needs to completely change his life. I think his therapist suggested getting into working out, which is the beginning of the slippery slope. So again, he's still in college, living mostly in his parents' basement. He's spending thousands of dollars now on gym equipment and getting really into working out. And watching, like, male motivational videos, to which I believe around this time too, he decides that he doesn't need to go to therapy anymore. And I was like, no, you still can't really leave your home, dude, and you have a lot of issues. Like, you definitely are not done with that. But again, he thinks that after like a short period of time, he's just completed therapy. And around this time, a couple of his friends ask how we reconnected too, because it's a question to ask. And I jokingly am like, well, we went on a couple dates and Jared rejected me, and he insists that never happened. Like, he refuses to, like, he denies it to his core that he ever rejected me. I was like, it's fine, it's funny, and I'm fine with it. But anyways, we're seeing other people, we're just friends. And around this time is when I met Basement Eric, the one who SA'd me and tried to kidnap me and keep me locked in his basement, right? So that causes a lot of damage. And my brain doesn't trust me to be around boys anymore. So eventually I have to explain to Jared, like, why I'm always sitting on the opposite side of the room or not really seeing him anymore. And he decides again in his brain, which he has made himself out to be a good person in the scenario and coming from a good place, that he can fix me actually. Because you just didn't get hugged enough as a child and you aren't shown the proper amount of affection. So he starts forcing me to, like, cuddle with him and hug him even when I tell him no and to stop. And from all the working out, he's becoming a very large man that I can't fight anymore, and so it's starting to get scary when he doesn't listen to me. And he also starts making this frequent joke that we need to go out on, like, formal friend dates because, like, I just deserve to be loved and shown love. Which, again, I believe came from a good place, but I was like, no, like, I've been on real dates. Like, I've been on fine dates. It's fine. I've been on a good date before. Like, I love you, dude, but you also still refuse to leave your home to go to most places, so it wouldn't work out anyways. So because his behavior towards me is actually making my issues worse at the time, I'm in a lot of intensive therapy myself for this, I have to distance myself or make sure that his other friends are around whenever we're hanging out because he doesn't do any of this stuff in front of his other friends. And an interesting note is now that he's moved home after college, instead of hanging out with his more left friends from college, he's just hanging out with his high school friends that all are on the right. And that starts to really speed up his change in behavior. And around this time, we're both dating and seeing other people, and he never really likes any of my partners, which is fair. I had a lot of duds. But the difference is every time I had a boyfriend, I really wanted to connect him with Jared. Like, I wanted them to be friends, because isn't that the goal? He finds a partner, I find a partner, you and your best friend, like, we all live happily ever after together. But no, because whenever he got a girlfriend, I was never allowed to meet her, no matter how many times I begged and asked. And also, every time he got a girlfriend, of course, she was blonde, my height, and he kind of stopped talking to me when he was dating them. Or at least he stopped forcing me to cuddle him all the time, which was a win for me. Also, the cuddling stuff started again shortly after I started hanging out with him more, but I was able to deal with it then because time had passed. He'd also slowly started using like alpha male, beta male lingo. Like, he's hanging out with his gym friends 24/7. They have daily fitness, eating, they have everything mapped out on an Excel spreadsheet. They're constantly on the grind. He's he's leaning into alpha, beta, all that terminology. I'm starting to get increasingly worried. And then he gets a new girlfriend. And this girlfriend is super religious, super conservative, right? And all of a sudden, out of the blue, Jared suddenly is talking about being religious and going to church. He's going and playing tennis and doing all these things that I've never heard of him doing before. And he's starting to say some of the concerning things he would just let slip when he was one-on-one with me out loud now. I remember our very last FaceTime. He FaceTimed me after he was playing tennis with his girlfriend. I was talking about a date I had gone on, but we didn't really click. And he starts going like, you need a beta male because you have like an alpha energy. See, I'm an alpha male, so I need like a beta housewife. It's like, I'm just stunned by everything that's coming out of his mouth all of a sudden. And then at some point, I kind of must have made the comment that I was like a little bit concerned about all the conservatives and the things he's been hanging around for him to say this. And he utters the phrase, well, technically, like, voting conservative is the most alpha male thing you can do, right? Because, like, you're voting to suppress minorities and women. You're maintaining your seat at the top. And in that singular moment, all hope in my body left, and I disconnected from the conversation entirely. Did not try to continue to engage. I just made a natural exit. Because also, sir, you are the furthest thing from an alpha male I've ever met. Like, you can barely leave the house, and now this girl has entirely changed your personality. And two, you are Asian. Now, you are half Asian, but if a white right male looked at you, he would say you are Asian. You are the minority that you are saying you're voting to suppress, sir. But I just let it go. I didn't say any of that because I knew in that moment he was too far gone. After that, I no longer took any of his texts and phone calls, and I finally reached out to one of his other girl friends to ask if he had ever done any of this to her, because he always insisted to me, like, cuddling and whatnot is just what friends do. Like, it's totally normal. She said that was weird. She said that she had never seen him act that way to her before. Like, I don't know why, but he was only doing this stuff to me. After I got that confirmation, I sat down and I wrote a thick Google Doc text to send to him, to be very clear as to why I am cutting communication with him. I am terrified of him. I am terrified of his behavior, the man he has grown into. I am disappointed. I lost my best friend, and he's become this person I don't even recognize or feel safe around anymore. I have to just accept that that boy that I shared so much of my life with, that I loved, is completely gone. I'm never gonna get him back, and I think about him all the time, and I feel like a part of me is just gone. And I'm so sorry that I can't let you back. But if you see this, I love you, and I really hope that you get better. I apologize that I couldn't really finish the story, but luckily that's pretty much the end of it, and you guys finally found out, like, the one thing I can't talk about very easily. But also, look, I bought new plants, so yay, new plants, replace men with plants.